And now I have the honor to introduce our next keynote speaker, Rosalyn. She's the Division Director for the Division of Undergraduate Education. But some of the highlights, she has a lot of interest in diversity, which is always a good thing in engineering from what Joe has just kind of mentioned.
But thank you so much. I really appreciate being here with you all this afternoon. Yes, that's way too much to read. I've had a long career. I've been around in higher ed for about 27 years now. And I am currently serving as the division director. So once again, thank you for giving me an opportunity to be here with you this morning. I want to extend a special thanks to Ashutosh Dutta for inviting me, and also to the entire program or committee, conference organizing committee. We know a lot of work has gone into this, and especially given that it's hybrid. So we have all of you here, but there are also colleagues that we have online. I want to share a quick story because I'm a double E. So I'm a double E leading a division on undergraduate STEM education. So before I came up here, I told one of my math colleagues, I'm finally going to go be with my people, because I've been a member of IEEE probably since I would say the late 80s, early 90s or so. It's also a pleasure to be with a group of people who have a shared passion for promoting excellence in undergraduate STEM education for all students, which is the mission for the Division of Undergraduate Education at the National Science Foundation. For my remarks today, I'm going to focus on three main ideas. First, I will begin by talking about the priority areas for the National Science Foundation. And then I will go into how the pillars of access, equity, innovation, and excellence, what I'm going to talk to you about today, really can support those priority areas. And then I'm going to drill down in those pillar areas to talk about what we can do in order to really advance all four of these pillars. For the National Science Foundation, in 2022, we came out with a new strategic plan for 2022 to 2026. The title of the plan is Leading the World in Discovery and Innovation, STEM Talent Development, and the Delivery of Benefits from Research. In the strategic plan, there are four goals. One, to empower STEM talent to fully participate in science and engineering. Two, to create new knowledge about our universe, our world, and ourselves. Three, benefit society by translating this knowledge that we are funding into solutions for our greater society. And then four, excel at NSF operations and management. So do the work that we do at the National Science Foundation well. So if we look, what I want to talk to you about today, there were several objectives applied or created for each of these areas. So what I really want to drill down to are under the empower, because that's what we do, I feel like, in the Division of Undergraduate Education and the STEM Education Directorate broadly. We are really empowering the STEM talent to fully participate in science and engineering. So I'm going to talk about the work that we do in ensuring accessibility and inclusivity, and also unleashing the STEM talent for America. And we've heard Joe talk a lot about the types of outreach that the U.S. Naval Academy does, and we're also going to hear from our other colleagues in their keynote addresses about how we really need the full force of our society to really come to bear and tackle in STEM, in areas of STEM, so we can tackle some of the grand challenges facing our country and our world. Because to me, in order to do discovery, impact, and excel in the work that we do, we have to have the STEM talent in order to do those things. So the Committee on Equal Opportunity in Science and Engineering, which advises this, the National Science Foundation, in their 2011 report said that broadening participation not only provides fairness and equal opportunity, but diversity transforms science by expanding intellectual breadth. That's what they said in 2011. They went on in their most recent report in 2019, 2020, and I'm not going to read this. There are a lot of words on the screen there. But the title of the report was Making Visible the Invisible, Bold Leadership Action. So really calling us to action at the National Science Foundation. So wanting a more diverse scientific leadership, more attention to the economic advantages of belongingness in STEM, and then increased attention on the removal of social and cultural behaviors that are preventing the engagement of our full population in the STEM enterprise. So this is just hot off the presses. And when I say hot off the presses, the director of the National Science Foundation and the President of the United States just submitted the FY24, so the FY24 fiscal year budget for the executive branch. And so this came out just this past week on March the 9th. So there are 4 priority areas that we have laid out for next fiscal year. So right now we're in 23. The next fiscal year starts in October of this year. So first priority area is to create opportunities everywhere. So this is a whole NSF strategy where we want to expand access and inclusion in STEM along individual, institutional, and geographic lines. We're in the Mid-Atlantic region. There's lots of STEM happening here. Lots of STEM happening here. Let's go to some of our EPSCoR states, which are those that don't receive a lot of federal funding. There's not as much happening there. And so how do we make sure that we engage broadly and create opportunities everywhere for folks to engage in the STEM enterprise? We want to build a resilient planet, so really focusing on the climate crisis, advance emerging industries for national and economic security. And I looked at some of the poster topics, and a lot of you are talking about quantum and AI and machine learning and the like. And so we want to make sure that we continue to advance these emerging industries so that we can maintain our own national and economic security. And then finally, the 4th pillar area is to strengthen research infrastructure, to really make investments that the things that Joe was talking about that are happening at NASA. There's all kinds of research happening in down in Antarctica, making sure that we are really supporting the infrastructure needed in order to continue to advance STEM. In order to achieve and advance the work that we fund in those priority areas, well, we have to think about who are our students. We talk about wanting to reach and broaden participation in the STEM enterprise, but who are our students? So just going through some data, and what's shocking are some of these numbers. And 18.2 million students were enrolled this past fall. Now, when I got these numbers, I was comparing 2019 numbers. This is actually down 10% from before COVID. That's a little frightening for me as a university professor, like to know that we're decreasing enrollment in higher ed. A large, over 80% of those students were undergraduate students. We had that, of those undergraduate students, almost twice as many of them were attending full-time. And I know many of our students here are probably full-time students, but look at that. 5.5 million were attending school part-time. And 4.5 million are enrolled in 2-year institutions, so our community colleges. And that doesn't count an additional approximately 5 million students that are enrolled in the workforce programs in these community colleges. And keep in mind, I do STEM broadly, so I'm talking about all the technician degree programs and technician training programs that are happening at our 2-year colleges that are also of interest to us in the Division of Undergraduate Education. And 13.7 million of them were enrolled in 4-year institutions. So what does that look like in terms of demographics? Now, what's shocking to some of us, maybe because we operate in STEM, is that vast majority of students enrolled in institutions are female. I know we don't see that same kind of representation in our STEM disciplines. And then if we look at the demographic breakdown, we have lower representation around racial and ethnic identities. And when I talk about female male, that I'm also leaving out all our students who have other gender identities. So, and then if we think about the age, you have 4 million or so of those students are 25 years and older. So if we look at at who's in STEM, we are missing a severe portion, a major portion of our population. So to go into what we do here in terms of thinking about access, equity, innovation, and excellence, how do we become a global leader? Well, we have to increase the pipeline. We have to address inequities. We have to foster innovation, and we have to advance excellence. And so this is a complex issue with lots of moving parts. That's the gear train I have up there. And I doubly sticking a gear train on a slide is not something I'm really comfortable with. That said, when we think about access, we have to think about pathways to the profession. And that includes our two-year institutions. We have to think about broadening participation. We at the National Science Foundation, in our division, we have programs like STEM, which is a scholarship program for low-income students that we fund in higher ed institutions. We have our NOICE program that funds teacher preparation scholarships. So giving scholarships to teachers to go teach in high-need schools after they complete their degree. We have the ATE program, which is Advancing Technological Education, and the HSI program, which is focused on providing awards to Hispanic serving institutions. Altogether, all these programs are ways in which we can support our communities and our stakeholders. In terms of equity, our goals are thoughts around recruiting and retaining. So we can recruit you in, but how many of our students here have friends who left their discipline, who started out in engineering and then said it wasn't for me? So we really have to be mindful about not only recruiting, but also retaining those students in the discipline. How do we prepare our workforce? How do we think about the educational skills that we are providing in our classrooms so that our students are well prepared to enter into the workforce? And we can't just focus on, I love, the R1s, those institutions like Hopkins and, MIT and those institutions, they do a great service for us. But we also have to think about institutions that are historically underserved. And we have to not only focus on getting students in, but looking at our policies, our processes, and our outreach. And we have other programs like the Racial Equity Program and the Educational Core Research Program that are advancing our technologies and our knowledge in this area. So in terms of innovation, we can't do business as usual. We have to be creative in the ways in which we are supporting our folks. So we have to look at ways in which we can use advanced technologies like quantum and AI in order to think about creative ways in which we're educating our students. And we're supporting pedagogical innovations, curriculum development, also that we can, and we also just established a new directorate called the Technology Innovation and Partnership Directorate, where we can support novel partnerships, not just higher ed institution with higher ed institution, but higher ed with museums, higher ed with nonprofit organizations, higher ed with companies. And so in terms of excellence, all of our programs aspire for excellence in terms of, in order to achieve excellence, there has to be continuous improvement. There has to be reflection. There has to be evaluation. Most of us are engineers here, right? And so we know that in the whole design process, there's lots of redesign that goes in there, that we don't necessarily get it right the first time, but through an iterative process, we can come up with the best possible design. So we're looking at fostering connections and in the interest and to make sure that all of this is working together so that we can broaden participation. So together, the Division of Undergraduate Education, bringing all of these together in order to advance our work. So I am going to stop there because I had a lot more information specifically about each of those programs, but I want to give an opportunity for folks do we have time for questions? I will say the slides do talk about, since no one's coming up to the mics, I will say that the slides specifically talk about each of our programs, when the deadlines are for those programs, the type of work those programs funded. I use EDU. That deadline's coming up this summer. We have an engaged student learning track, institutional and community transformation, and our first question.
Hi, first I want to say thank you so much for your presentation. It makes me really happy to see that stuff like this is happening.
Yeah.
as an older brother to a Black 14-year-old girl who feels like STEM is not for her, even though she hasn't really given it a chance, what can I do to kind of improve her confidence and like wanting to like pursue STEM like this? Like, what can the older sibling or like the parents or the teacher do for the younger kids who may feel that STEM might be not for them?
So I feel your struggle because I have an 11-year-old daughter who started off in elementary school wanting to be an engineer. She has two engineering parents, wanted to be an engineer and a teacher. We're doing all kinds of really cool things. She's in middle school now and she wants to be a fashion designer. Nothing wrong with that. But I think what we have to do is I think some of the struggles are struggles in the classroom and not having our girls see themselves in the classroom and thriving in those classroom spaces of math and science. Not that it's all math and science, but then take their own creative interests and link those interests back to. So my daughter and I were talking about fashion design. And I was like, well, the technology that goes into creating those materials, those new fabrics that you want to design, that's science, that's engineering. So continue to me, weave in, don't steer away from where her interests are, but take her interests and passions and link them to STEM. Because I think each and every one of us in this audience can see how what we do can link to other aspects in our society.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a struggle. I'm not going. She's not like me. I was doing science fair projects all through junior high and high school. Maybe I need to get my daughter to do a science fair project. That might help. Yes.
My question was, you mentioned something about helping like learn how to educate people better using AI. I think I heard something about that. I was wondering like if you could elaborate on that a little bit, because it sounds pretty interesting.
So my background is machine learning, and one of my early doc students in electrical engineering looked at using machine learning in order to do some predictions about student outcomes in classes. I think what we see is the power of the technology. If you think about some of the adaptive learning technologies, Alex is a tool that my daughter has used in her classes and I've used in some of my projects. The way we think about how machine learning technologies can be used to then help our students learn with the development of new software packages and the development of new tools. There's also the aspect of, one of the things we're tackling right now is ChatGPT and the ways in which these amazing technologies are not only crafting what can be really, really novel work, but also the way in which these technologies, some of us are worried about how they might be used to cheat. And some of us are worried about some of us are thinking about how they might be used to bring more power to the learning experience for our kids. Can we use some of the artificial intelligence, some of those learning algorithms in order to better help us provide adaptive learning experiences for our different learners, because we're learning very differently.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thanks for coming. I guess as a high school teacher, I'm kind of doing this all the time. And I think one slide kind of touched on it. And one of the things that I use to try to engage them is show me the money. I mean, literally show them the money, show them the path. Why do they want to be a social influencer?
Yeah.
There's money.
Yeah.
Show them there's money here.
Yeah.
Look, oh, iPhone, money,
Yeah.
program iPhone, make money,
Yeah.
I recruited a whole bunch of 8th graders into my 9th grade coding classes that way.
Yeah.
So I think that's a thing that we shouldn't be ashamed of using. We should say,
Right.
look, you want a job? And I think as an engineer myself, and you kind of touched on it, we can get our fingers into everything.
Yep.
And I said, if you go into engineering, maybe you don't want to do that in 10 years. Fine, you're an engineer. What are you number one? You're a problem solver.
Yeah.
Go solve problems over there. And then 10 years later going, I'm bored with that. Go solve problems over there. I
Yeah.
try to encourage them that it's not locking in. Oh, I'm an accountant. I'm doing this every day. No,
Yeah.
you are a problem solver. You can solve anything, go do
Yeah.
different things. So, I hope that, people aren't afraid to say, there's money to be made here. Maybe
And-
not as a teacher, but there's money to be made.
But I would say that what I value about our teachers who are STEM teachers, you all are scientists. You all are mathematicians, you all are computer scientists, that there is an identity as a like some of our programs are actually working and preparing teachers, pre-service teachers, to develop their own STEM identity, because it is that intersection of being an educator and a scientist that
I'd be
you
a
bring
student for
together.
life if I could. I had a student yesterday say, what are you doing this weekend? Because we started spring break. I said, I'm going to Johns Hopkins for this conference. Why? I want to learn.
Yeah, that is.
So you talked a lot about different programs that you're working on. So what do you think is the best age to really mold a pathway into a STEM career? Could it be elementary, middle school, high school? What do you think?
So, okay, so a lot of the research is going into that middle school area, because what we see is that with elementary education, there's still a lot of curiosity, and there's still a lot of ways, while we're focused on numeracy and literacy, science is still like this really kind of fun thing. And we begin to lose students, their interest in the middle school area. But to our colleague earlier, there is an important pathway as a high school student to continue. And I'll just add one more thing to that while we have been talking a lot about K-12, there are pathways into STEM careers 25, 30 years old plus. So actually really think about, I had a professor tell my kids when I was a graduate student that it doesn't matter what you major in college, you're not going to be doing it in 5 years, which kind of blew my mind. I've been in this thing for 27 years. So clearly I wasn't the one he was talking to. But even if we lose folks' interest in the K-12 span, that there are also pathways for us to have working adults considering coming back into the STEM enterprise for exactly those socioeconomic reasons. But yeah, there's a lot of focus in middle school though.
Hello, I just want to start off by saying thank you for coming out here and for putting together such a wonderful slideshow to show all of us. And this question kind of goes to something you were about to talk about, the programs that you were doing. In terms of the programs that you know and have been involved with, and as well as those that you're just aware of at the NSF, in terms of promoting like things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, what would you say is the program that has been had the most impacts, both like that you have seen, that you just know of, and how has that helped shape the goals for like 2022 to 2026?
Okay, so I have a staff of 40 some people. A portion of them are going to get mad at me because I'm about to call out one of my programs. I'm about to call out our program on the scholarships in STEM. And the reason why I'm calling out that program is because if we think about our most vulnerable populations in schools, it's those students who cannot afford to be there. They are a very vulnerable population. And the scholarships in STEM program provides scholarships for low-income students. And the federal government, we invest about $100 million each year in funding new awards in that space. All right, so it's not trivial, but we still cannot meet the full need of low-income students wanting to pursue degrees in STEM. Because what happens is, if you're worried about food security, if you have to work 3 jobs, I won't say 5 jobs, if you have to work 3 jobs and get your studies done, if you have to transition to being part-time because you need to work to support yourself, or you have other factors coming to bear, let's say you're a non-traditional age student and you have kids, there are a spouse or an aging parent that you have to care for. That program has a major impact because it is providing this year we went up on the scholarship amount, y'all. We used to have a cap at $10,000. Now with our newest solicitation, it's up to $15,000 for undergraduate students and $20,000 a year for graduate students. That goes to meeting the financial need of hundreds and thousands of students each year who are pursuing degrees. So, you know, all my other programs are great. I just happen to have a soft spot in my heart for
So,
working with low-income
Don,
students.
one question online. We just want to give a chance. Anna, you have your hand raised. Would you kindly ask your question? Quick.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your presentation. It was really great to learn about the programs and the focus, and especially for both the equity and access points. I really resonated with those because I was trying to give a presentation to middle school students for International Women's Day, and I was trying to put together resources for middle school students to get involved that didn't like cost money or require transportation or having like internet access outside of school. And it's really difficult to find something that is accessible for our students, especially because in my area, there are certain places where people just cannot use the internet when they're not at school. And so I guess I wanted to sort of expand that to ask, what do you think are the sort of the most impactful things to reach the students who are really not being able to be seen by a lot of other programs?
Yes. So Anna was just talking about some programming that she did for International Women's Day, which was last week. So kudos to all our women, all our folks who identify as women in the audience. And Anna for her work. In wanting to know what are some of the most impactful things that we see. And to be honest with you, it really ranges the gamut, because I don't want to diminish the scholarship that my colleagues are engaged in trying to answer those questions, answer questions like that. Like, how do we address sense of belonging within our students? How do we build STEM identity? But at the same time, there's this thing called a collective impact model. So we each have to tackle this problem from our own areas of strength, and together, holistically, collectively, we can begin to take bites of the apple, because this is a big problem. This is not something small, y'all. And big intractable problems take require lots of efforts from multiple angles. So I can't say that there is one specific one, as much as we all have to do our part. Joe made that call out to us earlier. We all have to do our part and take it on ourselves to do something towards helping address the issue of broadening participation in STEM. I'm done. Thank you very much. I apologize for going over.
I apologize for going over. I think we would have liked to have you for another day. Like at least 8 hours. And okay, while they are pulling up a screen to show you, I will present you with a plaque and very much thank you for taking the time to participate today. Oh, photo op. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to